Today, we're going to talk about speaking up more at work. And I've had a lot of conversations with a number of women leaders this week surrounding their contributions within meetings, giving presentations. And a recurring theme that keeps coming up is how that there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of fear that happens with speaking up. And so, what happens most often is that they stay quiet, that they don't contribute in their meetings, that they hesitate really to bring forward some really fantastic ideas. And on the opposite side of that, they also struggle to ask for feedback or what kinds of things could be improved, for example. So speaking up has multiple facets, right? Like, yes, you've got the traditional speaking up in meetings, during presentations or giving presentations, but there's also the flip side of that in terms of asking for constructive feedback, in asking for input as to how to grow your career and to get towards the next promotion. And there's a lot of hesitation that I've seen with many of the leaders that I work with, and trust me that this happens whether you're just a first time manager all the way into the executive roles that I've been coaching. These women are fantastic at their jobs, they're amazing leaders, and yet there's something that's just not quite there in terms of letting them get past their blocks of fear, letting them really truly show up as themselves during their meetings and in their workspace. So I want to talk about three reasons. I'll get my fingers right here. Three reasons as to why that's happening. So the first one is going to be about this belief that many of these women have, which is around I'm afraid of what others think of me. So I know this sounds really strange because you think, oh, well, haven't we got past that? Do we get to a certain level? We think, oh, it doesn't really matter anymore. But somehow there's still this belief that's ingrained about being afraid of what other people are thinking about you, or what you believe that they will find that you how you're acting or what you're saying. Okay. So if you think about this, does this mean that everyone around you who speaks up during a meeting is confident that they're not afraid, right? So if you're the one that's staying quiet because you're afraid of what they're thinking, we'll look around at the rest of the people that are in that meeting. Are each of those people in that meeting who are sharing, are they that confident, and are they not afraid of being judged of what other people are thinking of them? And are you really saying that there has never been a person who has been afraid of speaking up and then did it anyways? So it's just something to think about, right? Because one of these beliefs that we have is like, oh my God, someone else is going to think X, Y, and Z of me, or they'll think that this idea is stupid, or they think that there's nothing that that idea doesn't really fit with what we're talking about, or whatever the reason is you're coming up with to be self critical of your own ideas. And then you stay quiet. But we need all of these ideas. Now, that's the first one. And the reason I'm breaking down three of them is fairly important because considering the fact that many, many studies have found that if you're the one that's speaking up at work, that you're more likely to be promoted. You're more likely to be recognized. You have bigger impact. You have more influence. So if you consider all of those aspects, there's a really good reason that to let go of the fear around speaking up and being seen and actually getting into the action of speaking up and sharing your ideas, because all those innovation and all those ideas is something that we need. And you'll understand with the example that I give you in the next one. So the second belief that a lot of women are experiencing, and you may have one or two or all three of these, but the second one is that others have more knowledge and expertise than I do. So imagine you're walking into a meeting room and you're looking around that meeting room going, oh my God, well, he's got 20 more years of experience than I do. Oh, well, she's been in the industry for at least 5 years, and that can't compete at all with the expertise that I have. So you end up staying quiet. This morning in a conversation, I had someone that shared she's moved into the tech industry, completely discounted all of her previous work experience outside the tech industry and said, I can't get promoted because I don't have the expertise of being in this specific tech industry. Well, have you not just completely lost all of the experience and you've just thrown away? without recognizing that that person had amazing skills and that was the reason she was brought into the position in the first place. So think about it this way. When you're walking into a meeting and you're starting to find yourself going, okay, well, they have more expertise, they have more seniority, so I don't really want to go that far. Consider and ask yourself if it is more important to focus on what you can contribute and the impact that you can have rather than what everyone else um, has themselves. Okay, so once again, I'll phrase it again. Isn't it more important to focus on what you can contribute and the impact that you can make rather than on the skills, the expertise, and the seniority of the people in the other room? Now, as an example, this was a news piece a couple of years ago within the Canada Phoenix Pay system. So if you're not familiar with it, it's simply a payment system software that was built. Now, employees and people didn't speak up, and it cost a 1.5 billion dollar mistake is what happened with this. So if people had just started to speak up, could you see the impact that could have been made? So consider that the next time you've decided, okay, well, everyone else around me, they're much more knowledgeable, so I can't speak up. What you can do is start building off of the ideas. So if you're a little bit still nervous about sharing because you still think, okay, well, they've got more seniority and they're more knowledgeable, consider taking a step back and listening to what their ideas are and then building off of them. So, for example, you could say, if someone else has shared an idea, you could say, yes, you know what I like about that idea is, and then you highlight what you like, keep it short and concise, and then you add, and I would like to add X, Y, and Z. Now, here's a twofold thing that you get. One, it shows that you're actively listening. So the person's idea, who you incorporate in this, really feels heard and seen. And it shows to everyone else in the room that you're actively listening and willing to build upon ideas. So it's a really powerful way of still sharing your knowledge and expertise and and creating that recognition for both the other person as well as for yourself. Now, here's a third part. So let me just recap here. If you're just jumping on, we're talking about speaking at more at work today. I would love it if you drop in the comments, of course, if there's questions you've got about this or there's something else that's coming up for you. Just drop it in the comments. So far, we have covered the first reason that you're not speaking up as much at work as you should is you're afraid of what others think of you. The second one is that you believe that others have more knowledge, expertise, and seniority than you do. Now, some of them in chronic seniority, yes, that's you can see that as a fact. However, knowledge and expertise is really subjective information, right? You can have all the knowledge in the world and yet not use it. And then the question is, are you then the most knowledgeable in the room? Now, the third one, we're getting into the third one today. Now, is all about sharing your knowledge and expertise is really the only way to contribute in your meetings. And this is like, when I was thinking of an example, this is like thinking of that when you're playing a soccer match or a football match, depending on what part of the world you're in and what you call that sport, the only way to contribute in a soccer match is to score goals. Except, yes, you need to score goals in order to win a game. However, you also need the goalie, you need the defenseman also available in order to make sure that you keep the other side from scoring. So, what could you do instead of just sharing your information and your knowledge and expertise? Another really powerful way to show up in a meeting and to speak up is to ask questions. So you'll find if you look at a meeting, probably the majority of people around you are trying to share information. They're trying to share their insights. They're kind of one upping each other of like, okay, well, here's my idea, and this is why it's better. What could you do instead is start asking some powerful questions. Questions you can do in a couple of different ways. So, for example, you could be asking clarifying questions. And so, along the lines of, do I understand that this is what you're saying? Is this the idea that you're sharing, right? Just clarifying the idea that someone has been sharing at work. It'll, excuse me, it allows people to just add more substance, add more information, add more reasoning to the ideas that they're sharing, and it shows you as being actively listening and actively pulling more and engaging as well as team building. Now, a second type of question, type of powerful questions you can start asking are exploratory questions. So, for example, ask in the sense of like, what if um, X, Y, and Z were to happen? What could we do? Or what if this was the outcome? Or what if this is what we implemented? So it really kind of future paces what you're discussing, but it's more of an exploratory manner. So the second type of question here we're talking about is exploratory questions. The third way is brainstorming questions. So consider it in the sense of like pulling up, well, what other ways could we achieve this result? Now, again, remember, it's just asking questions, but it can be a really powerful way to also contribute in the meeting because you're actually pulling everyone else into it. And this is a role that I have seen so many people avoid because you want to avoid looking dumb in a meeting because really like if I'm asking questions, this is another belief we're not going to get into it today, but oftentimes we believe if I'm asking questions that shows that I don't understand, that I'm dumb, that I didn't prepare well. However, that's not necessarily the case when you consider the types of questions you're asking. Okay, so the first one was a clarifying question. So clarify what is the idea, what is the result, the project that's being discussed. The second one is exploratory. So there's more your what if questions. The third one is your brainstorming question. So what other ideas you could do. And a fourth type of question that you could consider is the deepening question. So what these are the why questions oftentimes. And I would just say, why is this necessary? Or why are we doing this? Because it is something that really gets to the core. And I want you to watch and observe how hard it is to answer that question. The question of why, for example, is one of the hardest questions to answer. Your brain just doesn't seem to compute it. And if you don't really believe me, take a look and ask any child, for example. I know it sounds really strange, but if you ask children, they can answer what, they can answer how. If you ask them why they did something, it's very difficult. Same with as adults or even in a corporate space. When you start, we can explain what we're doing, we can explain how we're doing it. For example, like, we can explain what strategy we're doing, we can explain how we're going to implement that strategy, we can explain when we're going to implement that strategy. But when it comes to the why, that gets really fuzzy. So, asking a deepening question, asking a why question can be a really powerful way of bringing everything back to the center of the root as to why you're doing something or taking an action or choosing a strategy, and really get the team and yourself focused as to where it is that you want to go. So, that is those are the three reasons. Just to summarize it up, again, we talked about the first reason that you're struggling or you may be struggling at speaking up at work. And this is what I found a lot of the doubting leaders that I work with struggle with is they're afraid of what others think of them. And again, remember, if you keep thinking that, you should really ask yourself the question, is everyone else who's speaking up confident? And that's why they're sick and they're not afraid of what other people are thinking of them? Or is there a possibility that simply people start speaking up because they have ideas to share and they're willing to overcome the fear and simply share them anyways? The second one is you believing that others have more knowledge or expertise than you have to share, and then of course you're staying quiet again. So remember, at this point, it could be really good to remember that it's more important for you to contribute and make and share the impact of the knowledge that you have rather than staying quiet. And the third belief is all about sharing your knowledge and expertise is really the only way to contribute within a meeting. It's not, right? Similar again to football. If you're only going to be scoring, you're forgotten your defense in the back, and you could lose the game because you don't have a goalie, you don't have a defense. So, what other ways you can share your expertise and knowledge is through asking questions, asking powerful questions, and the four different types of questions. If you're kind of wondering what those were, skip back to probably about the 10-minute mark and you'll get those questions all over again. All right. So I know if you're considering it here going, okay, there's a reason that speaking up at work is really difficult for me and I'm not sure quite what's going on. These are a few of the reasons that this could be happening. And I have worked with so many women leaders over the past couple years to really know why it's happening and how to fix it. So if you're interested in either accelerating your promotion process, because we're at the end of the year, accelerating your promotion process, or you're simply wanting to feel more confident and excited about sharing your ideas at work, then DM me how to see how I can help, and we can get started from there. Look forward to seeing you in my inbox, and I will talk to you again soon.